the Silence of the Lambs one you bring up is a good one because that scene used to be 5 minutes long, and we did the entire first introduction of Clarice in that scene. We had literally a character say, stay to the right, last cell on the left, and then the back and forth was verbatim, back and forth between the two of them. We went deep. We went deep on Silence of the Lambs. Ultimately, that was a different version of that moment in the movie.
If you could email me the footage, it would be our secret.
We have it, and I would say that Jenny Slate recorded the whole thing, and it's absolutely bonkers funny. It is really, really great. Yeah.
So you recorded basically a 3, 4, 5 minute homage to the Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
Yeah. Ultimately, people said we need to keep the movie going. Though, and I went,
stories. We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello.
Hello.
I've got Yvett Merino. I've got Jared Bush. Hello, Yvett Merino and Jared Bush. How are you?
Good to see you. How's it going?
Not too bad, thank you. Says glossing over. I hope you're both well. You're sat in front of a very fetching backdrop where someone's managed to change the name of the film because you've changed countries again. Total respect.
Yes.
Before we get into this, right, when are these films set? Because I haven't seen an overhead projector since Mr. Preston in Double Geography.
Yeah. You know what? We do that for the younger generation, so they know the struggles that we faced growing up. I'd say it's less indicative of the technology of the world of Zootopia or Zootropolis. It's
first
more
slip. Let me write these down.
Man, we're in trouble already.
Let me do a little score.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that everyone knew that room where Fuzzby was in was not the best technology. So, much better than an overhead projector to show that.
Okay, so 1 point to you so far. Has no one at Disney thought of buying the Danish zoo that owns the trademark? Has that come up?
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into
Disney,
that. Unfortunately,
by the
it's
time
slightly
you get
too
to a
late for this
third
moment in
film.
time. We're going to get into it.
Set the third film in the bloody Danish zoo, which holds
we'll
the
be done.
trademark to your name. Easy.
My gosh.
So, Jared Bush, you are the screenwriter of New Line Cinema's Abandoned Mancation movie. We've discussed this before.
I remember this from last time. You do your research, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, Adrenaline for Radar Pictures,
All of it.
the Dark Overlord of Walt Disney Animation Studios. Lovely to see you. No offense, I'm just going to ignore you for a minute.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
I mean, by the way, she does.
Because
so perfect.
Yvette, hello, how are you?
I'm
I don't think
well.
we've spoken before. And I'm reading this story of about 25 years ago. You were hired as a temp at Disney.
I was.
And it's just like, can I? Was this a temping agency thing where you could have ended up at Walmart or something like that, or were you trying to get in at Disney?
Funny enough, it was a temp agency that placed in entertainment. So I ended up in a bunch of different places, and I was lucky enough to get like a 3-month, a long-term job supporting someone. He didn't hire me, but
Was it Jared? Because we could work this out.
Right here.
But I was fortunate enough to be sitting right next to the recruitment department. They said, "Don't worry, we'll find you a job," and they did. And I figured I'd stay on for a few years to see where it took me, and here I am.
So what? Basically, a 3-month temping job has led to the stage of the Oscars.
Yes, it's unbelievable. I still don't believe it. I giggle about it sometimes because it seems so far-fetched.
But from where I sit, it is believable because someone's done it.
Yeah.
And it's the whole notion of if someone's done it, then you kind of put a path there for someone else to follow it. You've made it believable, surely.
Well, thank you for that.
Not at all. You started, as I understand it, on Chicken Little. That was your the first Disney film you were mildly involved with. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I was in the studio during Chicken
Yeah.
Little, and I know the internet has different credits for me, different places, but I
could go and make some more up. I could just put some stuff on there.
We can go back to Snow White if we want.
Right, let me just write. Yep, you leave that to me.
Yes, I was working in the technology department. At the time, I got a credit for that, for working within the department. But really, my first about 10 years of working in technology and overhead departments, I transferred into production. And my first show that I was a production supervisor on was Tangled, which is where I met Byron Howard.
That's a nice troubled film to be on as well, wasn't it?
It was a wonderful film.
Yeah, I love the film, but yeah, I remember doing the junket for that, and there were lots of things we weren't talking about.
It was a journey.
Yes, which clearly I shouldn't talk about here as well. But that 10 years in technology, though, because no one seems to ask you much about that. And as much as I'm sure you don't want to tell me like bits of like the actual technology bit, you are seeing the perspective of a company that was going through quite a transition at that point. Because Chicken Little's in the Black Cauldron and Basil the Great Mouse Detective cupboard, isn't it? You never see it at Disneyland or anything like that.
I think we were adjusting and growing as a studio. It was a time. I feel it's a weird time warp for me because I've been around for so long and seen so many different changes come in through the studio. And, one thing that has always stayed consistent is the people and the artists there love what they do. They have a passion for animation. They have a passion for striving to kind of do the best work. And, for me personally, I ended up with this job in technology and didn't really, it's a strange thing to be at Disney Animation where everybody is so passionate about what they do. And I was like, oh, well, what can I do here? Yeah. And so once I kind of transferred into production, it was like within 3 months, I was like, oh, this is it. I found it. So.
I've got to ask, it's just like you keep saying job in technology. What was the job in technology? Were you fixing the printers or something? Was it?
Pretty much. I was an assistant.
Was it really? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was an assistant. I'm not an engineer. I studied sociology, so my degree is not in engineering. And I was an assistant for a few years, and then I got promoted to what they call administrative manager, where I managed all of the moves and the new hires and all the administrative stuff for the department. And so my role and kind of what I've liked to do has always been about finding structure and chaos and trying to help build, ways to get things done. So when I was able to slide into production, it kind of all just came together.
And was it Roy Conley and his facial hair that moved you towards production? Was that
it was the long ponytail at the time.
Did he have a ponytail?
He did.
Google him, folks. Honestly,
yes, really.
That is a man who spends hours just on his.
Yes, this was before. Yeah. The ponytail was in the back and not in the front.
Okay, that's a good look for a man of my age. I might try that. So, I mean, so tell me about the two of you coming together. I'll bring you in if you don't mind, Jared Bush. I've noticed you're there because this is the second film.
I like this, by the way. I like the third degree you're giving her. This is my favorite.
I'm coming back. I might have found the Mancation script, but I might be saving that for the end.
We'll get into that some other time. Yvette's here. Let's talk about Yvette.
No.
Well,
She's
these
an
are the questions I don't
producer.
hear asked to Yvette. So that's kind of why I wanted to kind of go into that a little bit. Because the fact that you were in technology, the fact that you were doing these admin roles, it's all part of the path, isn't it? And I just wonder if someone's watching this in that role, and it goes back to maybe they feel they can kind of follow that path. Tell me then what it was like on the Oscar stage. Could you reflect, just on that 20-year journey at that point?
Yeah, it was really, honestly, something that people were like, oh, did you always dream about it? I didn't even think it was possible. I did grow up in Southern California, but so far from the entertainment industry and had no, real thoughts of like, oh, someday I could do this. I was really just trying to figure out life, and one thing led to another. And so standing up on that stage, and I was so proud representing the whole entire crew, because that's what I feel like we do, is we're the front people representing the crew of everybody who's put so much hard work into these films. For me as a Latina, it was very important to stand up there and kind of show little girls that it is possible. It may not be, you may not think it's possible, you may not even know it's, available to you, but it is possible. So it was all wrapped up into like surreal things, and try not to trip with my shoes.
I love that. I had Patricia Riggin on this show earlier in the year,
Yes.
and she talked about from a background where film wasn't available to her. But also she said she had to fight because she knows she doesn't get the scripts that Spielberg and Scorsese get, and she has to make the most of what she's given. And she's done a
Exactly.
fun movie, G20 and stuff like that. But I just wanted to
Yes.
name check her at every opportunity. 'cause
Patricia
she's
Regan
amazing.
is amazing.
Isn't she great?
She is
Isn't
so
she
great, yeah.
So, if I've got the timing of this right, just over 2 weeks ago, you had a rap party for Zootropolis 2.
We did.
Right?
Yep.
Now, in fact, you've had two by the looks of it. I mean, you're really milking this, if
Yeah.
you don't mind me saying.
Yeah.
If I'd found you two in February,
Yeah.
right? Because this feels like it's coming very close to the finish line, and the two of you were on another film that came out a year ago. If I got you February and March, who would have been crying the most? Where was the film then?
Oh wait, February, March of this year?
This year, yeah.
Or
Yes.
are we looking into the future?
Just the past.
No. I'm just curious. I was always taken with the story of Don Hahn told of The Lion King.
Yeah.
The trailer for that comes out a year ahead. The trailer's been acclaimed. The film is absolutely in a state.
Yeah.
All they've got is the first 4 minutes. Where were you in February and March? Because there's presumably a miserable middle to every animated film. Most animators tell me that. I mean, had you got it? Had you locked it? How close to the wire were you going?
Well, I think we honestly have the luxury of being able to try things and experiment with things very late. And so I'd say over the Christmas, New Year's break, we did a bunch of story work to make sure structurally we were in a good place for the story. And we looked kind of tonally at how the movie was starting and what was happening at the midpoint. And so that was just being storyboarded and pressure tested around February. It was actually really an exciting time because it felt like, oh, this is what the movie needs to be. And you always hope for that lock-in to happen. So I think, our amazing producer will tell you whether this is true or not. But from my perspective, I went, oh, this is going to be really hard for us to execute. But the bones felt like we have the bones. And that's a huge moment where you go, got it. Now we have to figure out how to actually make it. But what we're talking about felt very right.
So when did you have the bones?
We started on this about 4.5 years ago, and the true north was always there. Several years ago, there's this scene that takes place between Nick and Judy that's really the emotional climax of the story that we've had for years, and that was always the true north. But how do you get to it in a way that feels earned, making sure that you're not putting a bunch of other stuff that's going to get in the way of that? That's actually the trickiest part for me personally, because this is a world where there's entertainment everywhere. And it's really easy. She'll tell you, it's easy for me to chase the shiny objects because there's so many of them. They're all delicious, and our teams are just phenomenal at just digging out the entertainment of this world. But keeping that as the true north meant that January, February of this year, we were really making sure that structure did that for us.
So I suppose it's quite a boring question, the kind of how did you do it? But I'm just curious that, say, 5-6 years ago, would it have been possible, for instance, for Yvett, for you to produce a film of this scale that comes out a year after you've also produced a film of this scale? And Jerry, I mean, you've directed this one. You've got, a film a year coming out as writer as well. And also, I mean, in September 2024, your throne was carried through the Disney building as you ascended to Emperor Overlord.
You saw the
Walt
pictures
Disney
of that.
Animation.
I'm glad that those
Honestly.
reached you.
Honestly, the number of things internet informers tell me is incredible. But have the tools, because presumably there's still a human heart. I mean, there's clearly still a human heart to it. Have the tools changed to allow you to do more work more quickly? Or is this just like the worst schedule in the world?
Well, it was, it was a pretty tough schedule. And yes, technology advances every year. Would I have been able to do this, us as a studio? I think we've been leading up to this and working towards this for a very long time. This is truly such an ambitious film, and there's so much in the film. So I feel like we have been kind of working our way towards something this big for a very long time. But, with each year and in each film, because as you know, like our artists are our artists and they work from film to film. And so we build and the team gets tighter and tighter. And I think Moana 2 was a great experience for us. Because we had that switch of the story from a series into a feature and where we all had to roll up our sleeves and jump in and get it done. So it was actually, a great lead up to what we had to do for this one. So
I think that's true. The other thing I'd say is honestly the amount of collaboration in this movie, Zootropolis 2, is on a different level. Like, we're always highly collaborative, but we did change a lot of our processes on this movie to be even more so. That's actually what allowed us to get the movie done in time, because you had departments like our story department and our animators and our lighters and our cinematographers all talking to one another way earlier in the process than we ever do. And that allowed, an idea from animation come into the story early. And that would usually not happen until things were locked and you would never get there. So I think that crossover was pretty critical for us.
I've also been reading about a story jam.
Yeah.
That's new for this as well. Is that right?
It is.
Can you explain a story jam to us?
I'd be happy to. So, what my early parts of my career, I worked in sitcom television. And in sitcom television, there's a writer's room and, 10 to 15 writers sit around a room. And early on, you just throw out ideas, and these ideas can have no bearing on the final thing that you see on screen. It's just a way to sort of get everyone to loosen up and try things and know that you can kind of throw out anything you want, whether it makes sense or not, and just have a good time. It's sort of like this really healthy creative space. We wanted to emulate that within our studio on a number of different levels. And so what we do is if we had a location that was going to be new or presented a challenge or presented opportunities for comedy. There's this area called Marsh Market. It's a good example of this. It's this new environment. We'd never been there before in the first Zootopia, but it's also this kind of almost alien environment in that it's for animals above water and below water, and there's no human equivalent to that, a society that lives like that. So we brought our entire story department, so not just the members of our story team on Zootropolis 2, but the entire department of the studio. We invited anyone from our viz dev teams, those are the amazing artists and painters, and members of our animation teams. And we said, okay, we're gonna go to this place. Don't worry about what animals are there. Don't worry about whether this has any bearing on the story. Don't actually worry about the story. What are the most interesting things that could happen there? What's fun about it? How do these animals get in and out of the water? What kind of animals would even be there? And we just spent, each time we do one of these, and we did many of them, we just sit around for 2 hours and people would spitball ideas and build off of one another. And that gave us a ton of amazing, fun nuggets that I don't know that we would have gotten to on our own. Certainly for me as a writer, I have this amazing benefit of being surrounded by literally hundreds of super creative, smart brains that are just throwing out gold nuggets all the time. So, Ami Thompson, who's this amazing viz dev artist, she was the one that came up with the idea for our new Mayor Windancer. It's this glorious actor turned politician horse, or the handsomest horse that's ever been put on screen,
yep.
Right? We go to Burning Mammal, not my idea. Kevin Yang, one of our amazing viz dev artists, said, if we're gonna go out to the desert, what do you think about this? And I'm like, immediately, this is gold. So can't emphasize enough how much of a team sport it is.
So one of the questions I usually ask at the end of interviews, you've kind of preempted there, which is to tell me the story of someone in the credits who doesn't get to go to a junket, who we don't hear the story. And I noticed the credit at the end. I think it was Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs was the first film that had that, a film by a lot of people that I'd ever seen in live action or in animation. And you've done it here. I'm not sure it's the first time on a Disney film. It might be, but it's just like a film by everyone at Disney Animation. Can you pick out 2 or 3 people who just should get like their name out there? Who otherwise, because I mean, I dread to think who's the production designer on it? I mean,
Corey Loftus.
Yeah,
I mean, but we could pick out dozens.
Dead.
I mean, dozens of people. I mean, I'll say. Lee May Shea, she's one of our amazing viz dev artists. She's one of the first folks that came on to actually paint out what the design of that Marsh Market area would look like. So the aesthetic of it, the way that these buildings sort of interconnect, most importantly, the tone, the playfulness of that. I think the first time she joined the show, she wasn't initially on full time on the show. She was actually on a different movie at the time, and she came in for 2 weeks and went.
Was she hired on a temping agency for 3 weeks? Or something?
The same one. I know. We got to find that temping agency. She was on a different movie at the studio, and she came on just for 2 weeks and said, "I only have 2 weeks," and went kaboom. And she showed us. I mean, it must have been 20 images, gorgeous. Every single one, you're like, I want to go to this place. She's really the one that was the first person to really crack just that playful, personality of the whole location.
Yeah.
So sorry, can you just tell me about how does she get that idea to you then? How is the environment there that she can present like that eureka moment and know that it's going to be listened to?
Well, I think that, we talked early on when we were first starting the show. Disney Animation is collaborative, and everybody, we want everybody to pitch in and kind of share their thoughts. But Jared and I talked a lot very early on about making sure we created this environment where people felt safe to do that. And admittedly we make plenty of mistakes all the time.
She tells me about mine constantly, so.
But really just, and making sure, talking to our leadership and making sure they understood kind of the environment that we wanted to create. And it really just became a time to play and a time to just, explore. And I think, for me as a producer very early on, people always want to come in and say, okay, what are my boundaries? I said, there are no boundaries. Let's just talk and let's just play. And let's just, kind of create and see where it takes us. And we'll figure out and talk about how we need to get this done when the timing is right. But for right now, in the beginning, we want to play. And so, I think it's in that in that vein that we kind of created this team, and hoping and wanting for that to kind of trickle out through the entire crew.
Yep.
But also writ large in the Disney story, the Disney legend, is the sweatbox. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea of getting everyone into a room and tearing something to pieces. And I used to sit and listen to interviews of that and just think, I mean, in that kind of environment, I'd be the most socially awkward nerd in the corner of the room. And I wouldn't say boo to a goose. For everybody I'd imagine the sweatbox works for, there's the other person who might have the best idea, who's really quiet. I'm just curious how you get an environment that gets their voice out now that might not have been heard 20 years ago.
Well, you have to actively ask for it. I think that's the number one thing, is to make sure that you're always giving space to everybody. And if you're seeing someone who's quiet, ask them if there's something that they'd like to ask. And then you kind of have to reinforce that constantly. And I would say, we also had to push ourselves out of our comfort zones. We have to also fail and make mistakes. I think I shared script pages with everyone very early, and then constantly, because we're always evolving it. And so often they're really, really rough pages. I'll literally have this character, like in the script, it'll say Nick says joke. Filler line, like it's not good, or he runs down the street and something happens next.
Is that just you trying to get residuals? Do you get the story by credit if you put that in?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's honestly what it is really important to let everybody know it's rough to find, and that's okay, because it will start a conversation. And you never know where that great idea is going to come from. So the more you're telling everyone, this truly is a safe environment, and look at this idiot and what he's putting on a page. And if that's okay with me, that should be okay with everybody, that you can put out something that's not super well formed yet.
So it's exposing your own vulnerabilities.
It's critical, yeah. And honestly, that our movie talks about that. That's one of thematic pieces of it.
But the fact that I'm asking it and talking about it infers, not unreasonably, that 10 years ago, these weren't conversations that people were having about exposure. I mean, you told me a story last time about when you got your top job at Walt Disney Animation Studio, you had to go home and clean up dog shit because the dog has got like.
By the way, that continues.
Does it? Good.
It continues. We've also moved up to barf at the same time, so it's one or the other.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
Doesn't that take a screenshot if it does it at the same time?
Very possible.
Yeah.
And my children are very happy to wait for me to take care of that. So
excellent.
There's some things that endure.
My most boring question, but the one that really, really intrigues me. Okay. I spoke to someone who's directed a few television episodes, and they tell me the hardest thing they find when blocking a scene is when you've got 3 or 4 characters in there and 2 of them aren't talking, and you want to avoid them standing with their hands just by the side and just not knowing.
Yep.
So one of my takeaways from Zootropolis 2 was you have not just an enormous cast of characters, but it strikes me, and you can correct me on this, I've only seen it once, that you have more characters on screen together at the same time for a greater amount of time. Yeah. It's like you go to somewhere like Wreck-It Ralph and eventually we come down to like 2 characters in a room, and you don't seem to do that very often. How do you make sure I believe the 7th character at the back of the screen?
You want to take this one?
Well, we have,
Yeah.
yes, that is, it's so funny because it is always a conversation of, can we just kind of take some characters out because it'll help us get it done? And it's funny because we never really had that conversation on this film.
No.
And I think a lot of it is we're using Presto, which is a software that's new to our studio that allows multiple animators to work on the same shot and different characters at the same time. So that was a part of it. But also we have this amazing crowds department, and they really, they love what they do, and they make up their own stories about background characters. I think you can really watch in the last, 5 to 10 years of Disney animation films, watch the background characters, and really there'll be storytelling going on with them. They're like, oh, well, this couple, they're best friends, and then they got in a fight, and they're arguing. You can see the next scene, they're not talking. But there's, people, again, I think it all goes back to the passion that all of the artists and production management teams have about storytelling and about making a film that, being a part of something that's bigger than them. And so for that 7th character in the back, there's an artist in there that is excited to animate that character and to tell that story of what that character is doing.
Yep.
So I could now pull up any character and you 2 would instinctively know the backstory of that character.
No, this is the best part. We don't. So I think something we did early on,
I wasn't about to do that.
Yeah, please. Honestly, this is the best part is that, we have the greatest animators in the world. And so what you really do is just say, we trust you. Go have fun. And they, every single time we'd see anything, it was a treat for us. I will say, she just mentioned this new software called Presto. Which meant for this movie, we had to rebuild everything. It wasn't like, let's take those characters from the first film and just plop them into this new software. It doesn't work like that. What's interesting about that actually helped us is the way our animators would train up to be ready to do that, because it's all different controls, is they would actually start by animating some of the crowd characters and getting some of those walk cycles. So it became a training ground, but a really fun training ground, which meant that not only were they ready to animate on the principals, we then had dozens and dozens of background characters that were all very specific. And in this world of animals, you need that specificity to make it feel real.
So, when you were saying that this was being built in the background while Moana 2 was hitting crunch time, it was a lot of that rebuilding work and knowing that this was the film you were going to jump systems on.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
So how soon did you come up with you're going to jump storytelling, bring in Story Jam or something like that? Was this like a kind of clean sweep? We're going to try this on that film, and that's coming around the corner. Were people pre-warned of that?
I'd say it began in our story department. So Carrie Lau and David Van Tile, they were our heads of story on this movie. And from the beginning, I'll give them enormous credit. Story team is always sort of the first ones in, and they're really the ones, for years, right? So I think Carrie joined maybe 3 years ago on this movie. They're always the first one in, and we are trying a lot of different avenues. And so, I think just like script pages, 99% of what I write or what they draw never makes the final film because you're trying so many different avenues. But from the beginning, they really believed in the importance, as do we, the morale of the team, making sure that we are having fun. We're trying to make a movie that's full of joy. We wanted to make sure that, yes, these movies are always going to be difficult. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't be full of joy at the same time. And so this notion of a story jam and trying that was something that they were really excited by. And what was really interesting and fun is by the first time we did it, people were sort of getting used to the concept. The second time, okay, we got that a little bit better. By the time we got to like the 6th one, it was just everyone knew exactly what to do, and you could basically plunk down to any scene in the movie and say, we're going to story jam on that area, and people would just fly. And it was like creatively so fulfilling and fun.
Yvette, though, I mean, just putting the bloke to the side of you, just to the side for a minute, weren't there just times when the screenwriter just gets on your nerves, where it just comes up with something, and you're just like, you've got to be kidding me. How long have we actually got, and you've just come up with that? A snake? Who's come up with a snake? It's just like...
Jared likes to do that.
I'd love to hear this answer. Yeah. If it goes the right way. Go ahead, Yvette.
Well, I think it is the fun of working kind of in the way that we do. I don't really, we were just talking about this last night. The script is never really locked. People always wonder, when is the script locked? And getting that first pass of the script is always a big deal, and always Jared, is it ready yet? No, not yet. I need another week. Okay.
By the way, I like that that's what you think your tone was when asking that question. It did not sound like that.
Tone is everything, right?
Yeah. But, and once we have that initial script, and then it's just a living thing that continues to evolve and evolve. But, once we have that initial script, it's really like a living thing that continues to evolve and continues to kind of go on its own journey and get better. And sometimes it doesn't get better. And sometimes, we take 2 steps back and then we'll take 3 steps forward. But I think that's the kind of process that, we kind of go through to get these stories to where it is. And, things come in, things go out. And when things, as the producer, I'm always looking at it and, talking to our visual effects supervisors, our associate producer, and really saying, okay, if we were to have this, we share the script with them and they are like, we can't build all this. And we talk about, okay, well, let's focus on this. It feels like this is going to stay. So let's start building this, and then let the script just do what it needs to do. And it's just, piece by piece, little by little, we get to where we need to be.
It's a terrific answer, Yvette. Just between you and me, if we were in a pub and 3 drinks down, could you 100% assure me you give me exactly the same answer to that?
I think so. I think so. I mean, believe me, there is stress and a lot of, I think one of the great things about our partnership and along with Byron is we have been through so many films together, and we know each other. And ultimately, I know Jared is not, messing around because he thinks, oh, well, look, I'm just going to try this and try. He really, when he's writing the script, he's trying to break this story. But at the same time, he also knows that I really am just trying to help tell the best possible story and make the best possible film. And it's that trust, I think, that we have because we've been through this so many times together that I'm able to push a little bit and say, what's going on? And then sometimes he pushes back, sometimes he says, okay. But again, I think it's that partnership that we have built over these years.
That's true.
That really kind of helps this whole process.
That was the question I was getting to a little while ago, actually, about is it possible to do these 2 films so closely back to back, just in terms of where I sit, in terms of release date, if the 2 of you aren't in lockstep on it?
Yeah, well, I think the trust thing is really critical. And something I'm so appreciative of is that these movies are always, it doesn't matter what your time period is, they're always difficult. You do need to be able to push back against one another and for that to be okay and part of the process. And so you don't get your feelings hurt if like this really matters, or you say, I know, but we just can't get it done, or it's not good enough yet. It doesn't mean I'm a terrible person. It means it's not good enough yet, and we have high standards, and that we have to have that in our partnership. Same with Byron. Is we're all just trying to make a great movie, and ultimately the movie is the boss, and we're just trying to get the movie to where it needs to be.
The first time, I'm going to deliberately spoil a light on the film because I think it's not for me to spoil it. I think it's for people to discover it. I think I can say you've got a snake in it. And the first time I saw a computer animated snake, I was thinking about this. It must have been the end of Aladdin when Jafar does his transformation and he becomes a snake for a little bit. And I looked that up, and there's a tiny bit of CG involved in doing that, but doing a snake looked incredibly difficult. It just strikes me like it limits what you can do in terms of facial features, and also it just looks like, what the hell do you do with that? Tell me about bringing Gary the Snake to the screen, because I think he's a fascinating character.
I will say that so much credit goes to our teams that modeled him. It goes to just the design of him. I mean, he's a beautiful character, and that was something from the beginning that was so critical, is to make sure that this animal that so many people are afraid of, that when he comes in the movie, almost immediately you fall in love with him. You know, he's so vulnerable, and you need to believe in his story. That was one of the really early notes we got in the movie, was we need to be emotionally invested in him, or it doesn't matter. Or why should we care? Because he's not our main character like Judy or Nick. He's someone that Judy needs to care about. And so there was a lot of time putting into making sure that he was this appealing character that you worried about. Adam Green, who sort of led things on the animation front for Gary, I mean, really took on the mantle of making Gary a character that could run through a whole range of emotions. Obviously, this is a character, as a snake, it's basically, famously, ropes are hard, so we're like, let's have a rope be a character. He got in there very early on to try to figure out how Gary might move in ways that would surprise people. But then, of course, there's this amazing Disney legacy of hand-drawn snakes with so much personality.
Yeah.
Sir Hiss, Ka. I mean, it's probably no mistake that like Byron's favorite, early Disney movie is Robin Hood, and mine is Jungle Book, that feature these amazing snakes.
That tracks. Yeah.
Right. And so trying to figure out how do you transition that appeal from hand-drawn into the CG space. It's just a lot of people working really hard. But I'd say that Adam, early on, there was this Ke Huy Quan was on the Colbert Show, and it was right after he won the Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And but this is before Ke was cast, so lovable and warm. And we were like, I think this is probably gonna, Ke has to be the voice of Gary. And Adam animated Ke's entire interview as Gary the Snake, did the whole thing where he emoted everything that Ke did. And it was such a defining moment where you went, oh, there's so much appeal and fun that you can find in this character, and then eventually emotion. And that's our team's trying to figure out, okay, well, a snake does not have eyelids, so how do you get that range of emotion in the eyes, which is so critical? So it was honestly just a lot of people that really wanted to do something special and something that they knew that audiences needed to fall in love with, and then finding a way to make it work.
I have to out you as total movie nerds there as well. Things I wrote in my notes. Someone appears to do the Christian Bale Batman voice. That take the shot line, that's from Skyfall, isn't it? That's Silence of the Lambs. There's the God. Even before you get to all the Disney films.
I like the Skyfall reference, by the way, just so you know. No one's asked me about that yet. Kudos.
Was it? I take it that was Skyfall. Of course. Take the shot. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, tell me about the movie nerds. Tell me about I don't want the Disney Easter eggs. Tell me about the other little things we should be looking out for.
Oh, I mean, there's a cajillion. I think something that we love about Zootopia, Zootropolis, that's
2
again,
points. There we go.
So bad. Zoomania.
Yvette's got it right every time. Just
I know. Again, you see the difference between it. Someone's professional, someone less so. I'd say something that I think that audiences look forward to are the homages. I think that was something that we established in the first movie. And so jumping into this one, it just feels like if you can do it in a way that is organic, or frankly, you covered over so much that only a very small percentage of people are going to clock what that is. It's kind of fun because the whole movie doesn't rely on someone getting that one joke that one time. But if you go back and rewatch it and you happen to know, then there's these things that can be really entertaining. So I'd say, of course, the Silence of the Lambs one you bring up is a good one because that scene used to be 5 minutes long, and we did the entire first introduction of Clarice in that scene. We had literally a character say, "Stay to the right, last cell on the left," and then the back and forth was verbatim, back and forth between the two of them. We went deep. We went deep on Silence of the Lambs. Ultimately, it didn't. That was a different version of that moment in the movie.
If you could email me the footage, it would be our secret.
You know, we have it, and I would say that Jenny Slate recorded the whole thing, and it's absolutely bonkers funny. It
amazing.
is really, really great. Yeah.
So you recorded basically a 3, 4, 5 minute homage to the Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
Yeah. Ultimately, people said we need to keep the movie going. Though, we went, yeah, that's
no,
true.
you made entirely the wrong creative decision. Put the
Do you
story
remember
aside
when I
for us.
said things come in and they go out?
Can I must name check the other great Godfather, because you've got a brilliant Godfather homage.
Yeah.
The opening of Rugrats in Paris remains sublime for its Godfather. I think there's your double bill that you should put
it's
this
true.
with.
Here's a couple other things for you to. Obviously, everyone clocks the Ratatouille reference. Fewer people clock. It's also an Everything Everywhere All at Once reference, because the chef that says "I knew it" is a raccoon. So that's also a raccoony joke from Everything Everywhere All at Once in the same
Good.
beat, which I'm very happy about. I'm a big fan of the Mission Impossible series. I think there's a moment from nearly all of them, 1 through 6, I guess, because later on. By the time they got to 7 and 8, we were already done making the movie. But like, there's little moments throughout that whole thing that, to me, are for people that know those movies. You'll see those beats in different spots, which I particularly enjoy quite a lot.
Even the John Woo one.
You know what? I mean, we'll have to save that for the future, because that's the one with all the doves moving around. I guess.
I was going to say. Okay.
I'd say 3, 4, 5, 6. How's that? That's my sweet spot for those.
So, we're pretty much out of time. So I want to acknowledge that Yvette knows the name of the film and you don't, Jared.
You know what? That tracks.
Yeah, it does.
If I can put the last question to you, Yvette, because I think this is an important one. It's where we started. You've blazed a trail. From me sitting here on the outside of the film industry, you see the people who've just and I've seen Phil Johnston got a temporary contract, just on the twits. Jennifer Lee, obviously, temporary contract. But the person who's in the admin role now, somewhere, kind of looking up at the sky and thinking, can I do that? Is there something you'd say to them?
Yeah, I think, I also just want to state, Jared also was hired, I think, for 6 weeks. So, he also
his. It was luxurious
8. I'm so
8,
sorry.
But please,
8.
He has also blazed his own trail. But, for the person sitting there wondering, it's possible. I tell young people all the time, one, take the pressure off yourself of trying to decide in your early 20s what you want to do. I didn't have that. This is what I absolutely have to do. My best friend that I met in college, first day I met her, said, I want to be a teacher. All these years later, she's still teaching, which is great. I didn't have that. So sometimes journeys are not, as direct as we all hope and want. I always tell people I really did take the scenic route to where I am today. But, just be open to where life takes you. Doors will open, and sometimes if they don't open for you, you know what? That means there's another one that will open down the road. But be conscious and aware. And, if it's something that you want to do, just go for it. Because I think a lot of times we talk ourselves out of it. Oh, this isn't possible. This isn't possible. And I had a lot of people tell me that, oh, don't worry, this is never going to happen. But, as I was kind of going through the journey, it felt right to me, so I just kept going.
I'm looking at 2 Oscar winners who started on temporary contracts, and I think that's a really powerful message to send out. So I'm not even going to do a gag at the end of that. Jared and Yvette, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on Zootropolis 2. We'll save the Mancation chat for next time, Jared.
Love it.
To you all. Take
Good
care.
to talk to you,
so
as always,
much.
Simon.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
ya.